Zecher Nishmas, Harav HaChassid Avraham Chaim ben Reb Sholom Mar Zisel Bas Meir Zev HaKohen, Sholom ben Harav HaChassid Avraham Chaim Zal, Yitzchak Meir Zev ben Harav HaChassid Avraham Chaim Zal, Mar Sarah Biylא Bas Reb Aryeh Leyb Zal. He should, the donor himself should have a bracha, and everybody should have Aliyas Neshama. Okay, I want to get right into the text. Last time, after my big Hakdama, we learned Aleph. And Aleph, let's just go through it quickly. Reish is Kehillas Ha'adam La'avodas Hashem Tzarech Liyos B'chipazai. When you start off with a bang, you start off with a blast, you start off with a rush. When you start off a spiritual endeavor, Ruchnius, you start off with a Gewalt. K'moshe Motzinu, we find this with Pesach Mitzrayim. This is how we went out of Mitzrayim. Show you Nechal B'chipazai. V'loi Pesach Doiros. But that was not the case with the Pesach that we did every year after Mitzrayim, Korban Pesach, our Seder Pesach, slowly, little by little. Meaning that there's two ways to get into a great spiritual experience. There's two ways to get close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. One way is to jump right into it. And I'm going to add, in one sentence, everything I said last week. Afal pi she'enoi roi lakach. Even though you're not roi, you still have to jump right into it. And that's the chipazon. Or you could do what most of us think in conventional wisdom is go little by little until you reach the place of lifnei Hashem, of the da lifnei miata oimed. Two different drachim. Last week I said this, here you find Kotsk and the Izbitcher, exactly this point. Because just really as a mushal, but as two ways of thinking. Because in the world of Kotsk, I explained, if it's not real, if it's not true, nobody's asking you how many mitzvahs you did, nobody's asking you how long you daven. Did you do one mitzvah really right? Did you daven really sincerely with your neshama? It's not about the shuckling, and don't do all those things. Don't wave your hands in the air, don't scream if you're not holding by it. The Rebbe himself, Kotsk Rebbe, didn't daven that way, so even he held he wasn't holding by it. But in other words, that's a madrega for Moshe Rabbeinu. But the main thing is don't be a shakran. Don't lie. What are you doing external things if you're not holding by it? Came the Izbitcher, and this was the coup. This was the whole separation between Izbitch and Kotsk, as I explained last week, is that it's not the right way. The right way is to start off, as Reb Tzadok says, b'chipazin Mitzrayim. What was the case of Mitzrayim? The case of Mitzrayim was that they weren't right. The Klal Yisrael was in the Memtesh Shari Tumah. Klal Yisrael was Oivdei Avodah Zarah, according to the Chazal. Klal Yisrael was just like Egyptians. So what are they getting? What are they doing with Yetzias Mitzrayim? What are they doing with what's the how can we jump into exactly this point? How can we jump into a Yetzias Mitzrayim if we're not holding by that at all? So the answer is that we can jump into it because that's the way you go onto a derech of Avodas Hashem. Jump into it. Come to davening, the very first time you come to davening, wave your hands, and do all the things be a big Rebbe, shuckle a lot, and little by little, it'll become inside, it'll become internal, it'll become from your heart. So the question that we're talking about is really the approach, which between starting from the inside or starting from the outside. I just point out that the Gemara says, famous Gemara, like, how were we zocha to go out of Mitzrayim? How do we get to going out of Mitzrayim? After all, we were Ovdei Avodah Zarah. Malachim said, Halalu Ovdei Avodah Zarah, Halalu. After all, we were in the Memtesh Shari Tumah. Whatever that means. There was only 50. We were down to 49. So why? So the Gemara says, so why did we go out of Mitzrayim? The answer is, Loishino es levusham, Loishino es l'shoinam, Loishino es shmam. Somehow we dressed like Jews, we spoke like Jews, and we had Jewish names. Shmerel, Beryl. Those three things are the most external, superficial things that a Jew can do. So what, how you dress? So what, do you speak Yiddish? I always talk about the, one time I spoke for a group of old Apikarsim. People that ate on Yom Kippur. People that ate on Yom Kippur, they wanted me to speak in Yiddish because that was part of their chug was they got together and they spoke in Yiddish, and they called each other Ephraim, Moshe, Yigal. It was all Jewish names. Leishinu es Yeshurun, Leishinu es Shሎም, and they even dressed Jewish. Every one of them was with like bright plaid pants, bright yellow polo shirts. They mamish like you can like. No, I don't look like a Jew. These are the most superficial aspects of it. So that's why we went out of Mitzrayim, because we did three things that anybody can do. You can put on a robot or on a mannequin. What's the big deal that we did these three things? And the answer is that's how you go into Ruchnius. You go into it from the superficial. These three things were indeed nothing. But the nothing is how you start. That's the Bechipazin Mitzrayim. Comes Reb Tzadok and he says that you start off Bechipazin. The Pesach Mitzrayim was like just jump in there whether you're ready or not. Here I come. And then there's the next Pesach Ad Yom Hazeh, where we grow and we grow and we grow into Ruchnius. Mipnei Shahaschala, beginning, and Reb Tzadok says in a few places, Agav, that at the beginning there's a special or from Hashem. There's a special or from Hashem which is around us, and we have to use that light. We have to use that or. Goes away. After that, that's called the Sarusa de La'ela. That's called the Or Ein Sof, which is coming on us when we're makabel something baruchnius and doesn't necessarily stay with us until we grab it and we climb up that ladder. It's like a ladder dropping down from Shemayim. Full of light, here you go. Shulchan Aruch Lefanecha. Now climb. You don't climb, you're back on, you stand on the ground like you left it. Mipnei Sha'aschala, at the very beginning, Hashem gives you this or, L'natek atzmai mikol taivas olam hazeh she'makusher b'hem, because you have to separate yourself from the whole world. Tzarech lishmar harega, so you have to keep the moment, guard the moment, shemis orer bo ratzon Hashem, v'lach bois al oisoi rega, l'mayer lotzeis mahem ulai yuchal. V'acher kach shuv ula'at kedin Pesach doros. Now we're into the action of Pesach Torah. So that's what we learned last week. That's my chazar. Please let's go to Os Sameches, and I'm going in order, but I know the order. Where we're delving into exactly this point. Sameches, says Reb Tzadok. Kol ha'avodah shebe'ivrei haguf va'mitzvah shebehem. All of Yiddishkeit, all of the mitzvahs, everything that we do with our body, you put on tefillin with your body, kiss a mezuzah with your body, all the mitzvahs we do with our body, what we eat, what we don't eat, everything, what we listen to, what we don't listen to, what we say, what we don't say, these are all mitzvahs that we do with our taryag. Ramach Evarim Shasagidim. The Ramach Evarim and Shasagidim are tied up to the Taryag mitzvahs. That's the way it was. Haim Rak, and let's not read this quickly, let's concentrate. All of these mitzvahs, 613 mitzvahs, we're doing them all day. Haim Rak, the purpose of them all is Leheshir Halei. Listen how important this is. All of those mitzvahs, all the exercises that we do day in and day out, getting up and going to sleep, it's all for one purpose, to make your lave yasher. Now this sounds like a contradiction to Sif Aleph. It's exactly the same thing. Meaning that the goal is all the lave. If we do all the mitzvahs, this is actually a harsh statement. If we do all the mitzvahs, and it doesn't affect who we are and what we are, if we do all of these spiritual things and you daven and you shuckle and you scream and you go, and even if you give tzedakah, but if it's not miyasher halev, so then you're a clown. You're doing things externally it didn't get to its purpose, because the whole purpose of the Torah. So somebody asks you, according to Rav Tzadok, what's the purpose of all the mitzvahs? Here's the sentence. Kol ha'avodah shebe'ivrei haguf va'mitzvah shebehem hem rak leheshir alev. That's what they're for. Ve'ha'ikar hu alev, because the main thing is the leyv. Shesham ma'oin Hashem yisbarach, because that is the home of Hashem. We'll explain. Does it mean it's the home of Hashem? The leyv, I'm pointing here because that's what we say. Maybe this is the leyv. I don't know where the leyv is, the Torah leyv. The cardiac leyv that we have is a muscle. That which gives energy to everything, that which circulates all the blood. That if it doesn't work, nothing works. The leyv, a person was created, we were all created to bring the Or Ein Sof of HaKadosh Baruch Hu into this world. That's why we're here. Another way of saying the same thing is that our purpose in this world is to take the Or and bring it down to earth, and that's called Malchus. Whether you work in the world of spheros, whether you work in the world of Ilamais, whether you work in the world of Naran, it doesn't make any difference. It all comes down to Hashem wants to be here in this world. A human being is, in the words of Chazal, a merkava l'shchina. A merkava, like Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, they were the merkava of the Shechina. Was a merkava like a chariot, a wagon, meaning you're carrying the Shechina around with you, yeah? Merkava l'shchina. What was Yecheskel's whole big nevuah about? The holiest nevuah, the Maisa Merkava. So the Maisa Merkava means, how do we carry the Shechina of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and bring it into this world? This is nothing less, what I'm saying right now is nothing less than our purpose for the whole world, the purpose for Eretz Yisrael, and the purpose for the Beis HaMikdash, and the purpose of us and our children. That's the whole thing. To bring the Or, there should be more Or Hashem. The whole purpose of the Geula, La'as Lavai, is that the world is Malay Or, Lashon of the Pasuk. Everything is about this Or. Which Or? The whole purpose of learning Torah is Yisrael, V'Oiraisa, V'Kutshabricho, Miskashrin, Da B'da, which is actually the Lashon of the Chazal. It's all connected, this Or, to bring into this world. How do I become a Merkava for HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Is it my fingers? Is it my ears? It's my leyv. The leyv, possibly the same thing as the neshama or part of the neshama. That's something that has to be analyzed. But the leyv is the part which carries the Or. As he puts it, Shesham Ma'oin Hashem Yisbarach. That's the Ma'on, that's the home, that's the place that houses HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Therefore, as Reb Tzadok, what is it that I'm doing this mitzvah and that mitzvah and all the mitzvahs? And I'm davening and I'm getting up and I'm sitting down and I'm running. What's the point? The answer is because it's all affecting the leyv, so therefore I could be a Merkava to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So therefore, if there's a divide between what I do and what I am, the divide is unacceptable because you've brought no light into the world. It's like mamish, like light that comes into this room. If it has nothing to reflect upon, it's not light. It's not something you can see. So the Or Hashem, which comes b'Sirusa de La'ela, has to be brought in the Sirusa de L'Sata. So how do you do that? How do you do that? But before, how do we do it? Which is how we're going to connect Aleph and Samachas. That's the goal. The end game is the leyv. Kamasha Amru Chazal say HaKadosh Baruch Hu Liban Shel Yisrael Shendamar Tzur Levavi. HaKadosh Baruch Hu occupies, if we're doing it correctly, that is, the leyv of Klal Yisrael. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Liban Shel Yisrael. V'lachach, and therefore, Lo Yiyazah Mechuvan Min Ha'adam Rakole L'Dvarim HaMeviin El HaMechuvan. Please read that sentence carefully. Chaim, you want to translate that first? Lakach.
Therefore, the mitzvos are not the goal. They're just what brings the person to the goal.
Okay. Loosely translated. What?
Means to an end.
Means to an end. Let me just be a little more medayik than in the words. Lo yeh zeh hamechuvan min ha'adam. The ultimate kavana is not outside of the person, min ha'adam, rak kol elu dvarim, but it's all these mitzvos, which are rak kol elu dvarim ha'meviin el hamechuvan. They're all a goal, meaning the mitzvah, simply put, what you're both saying, is the mitzvah is not an end unto itself. The mitzvah is a means to an end. What's the end? Adam. What's the means? What's the pshat in Adam? Lייב. What's the pshat in lייב? Ma'oin shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
The closeness, the closeness, the kesher.
Ma'oin shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Miskasher and dabidah, but it's more. I'm actually carrying. I'm merkava.
The host.
Right. Not closeness. Merkava to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Where does it say that? It's a song. It's a song. Haredim. Okay.
Rob, how does this do with marriage with the law?
What do you want to know?
It seems that it's always is ultimately the Torah.
The Torah, like what Nefesh HaChaim said, the whole Shardalit is the Torah is the conduit, which has the ability to absorb within me. Learning Torah, Gemara, Rashi, and Tosfos, has the ability to absorb within me and emanate this or. So let's say a person is, it's just interesting. Like we talk about a ben Torah. Nobody talks about a ben medicine, or a ben philosophy, or a ben electrician. Ben electrician. But so why ben Torah? Because it's incorporated like that a ben Torah, bas Torah. These are parts where you're mamish like it's a part of you. So a ben Torah means the Torah is absorbed in me in such a way that it's actually changed me.
Does it make the whole idea of cuts even more difficult then? If this
Yes.
is the whole tachlis, shalom ishma, bang ishma, what do they do with that? We shouldn't do it. Shalom ishma.
Well, not at this point, Reb Tzadok and the Kutzker are holding the same place. That if that's the whole mechuvan, so are you doing it or you're not doing it? So, right? I just want to be mafarish for 1 second while I'm here. That we see, is there a sitter? Somebody holding this? Kedai to make our kavanas a little bit better. But right before Kriya Shema, we say in Avarabba, we say the following: Avinu av harachamon, amrachim rachim oleinu, v'sein b'libeinu lahavin, lahaskil, lishmoya, lilmoy, lalamed, lishmar, lasos, lakayim, eskol divrei salmatar secha b'yavah. So nice, you're a full, you're fully recruited, right? But look at the lashon, same b'libeinu yet. Lahavin, lahaskil, lishmoa, lilmoid, lalamed, lishmar, lasos, lakayim. We're doing everything. Ba'ava. So what's the next tefillah? B'hoyer einenu b'sarasecha v'dabek libenu b'sarasecha. Just said all that. B'hoyer einenu. No, I don't want to see it with my eyes. I want my eyes to be eyes of Torah. B'hoyer einenu b'sarasecha v'dabek libenu b'sarasecha. I don't want my heart to feel Torah. I want my heart to be Torah. So I go from what I'm doing all the way in to what I am. So the ratio of this tefillah is what I'm doing. Ad kadei lei. The seifa is what I am actually. V'hoyer einenu b'sarasecha. That's our kavanah. Dabek libeinu b'mitzvah. Our heart should be devek to the mitzvahs. V'yached levaveinu la'ahava u'yira shemecha mamash yichud halev. Yichud halev. So you have the whole mahalach, the whole talich in the tefillah. The Tzadok further. The Zohar tells us Al Taryag mitzvahs Taryag itin. That the 613 mitzvahs are 613 itin means eitzos. Aramaic for eitzos. So, what do you mean 600? Good advice, put on tefillin. I have good advice for you. You should have a mezuzah. It's advice? No. Taryag itin, it means there's 613 eitzos as to how to get the Shchinas Hashem into your system. So the Taryag mitzvah is a whole different way of doing Taryag mitzvahs, I will say. Whole different thing. The Taryag mitzvahs is an eitzah. Mefurish in the Zohar is a good eitzah. It's an eitzah which is a chiyuv. It's not an eitzah lafuke chiyuv. But it's an eitzah which is how to get to where we're supposed to be. In Mair Tzadok, he brings the exact lashon of the Zohar. Shismeya utlas aser zina ita yoiv araisa levarnash lemeheve shlim b'marei. That's the exact lashon of the Zohar. It says Desnan, interesting. Shismeya utlas aser zina ita. There are 613 eitzas. Yoiv araisa given in the Torah. Lebarnash to humans, lemehave shlim b'marei, so that he could be shalom within himself. That's the purpose. Ba'alzeh Omar, and here is where our journey begins. Ba'alzeh Omar, v'achar aruach rash, loy barash Hashem, v'achar arash eish, loy be'eish Hashem. Ki kvoid Hashem eino bedavar hanirgash umarish rak b'kol demama daka. V'hu halev sheino nirgash l'shum bria. So allow me to explain. Kedai for us to review the words of the very, very famous part of Tanakh. The story of Eliyahu Hanavi is in Malachim Aleph, Perek Yutes. Eliyahu Hanavi was a bit kanoi, Yadua, fighting against Avodah Zarah. He was even fighting against the Jews, Achav and Izevel. And he was on the run. And the Sukkim tell us that he was up north, where the whole story was Haifa, yeah, like Hara Carmel. And then he went to, it's right here in the Sukkim, he went from north to Beersheba. Quickly, I don't know how he did these journeys. Either he was supernatural or he had a fast horse or something. But he went from all the way from Haifa to Beersheba. And there in Beersheba, all different things happened along the way. Hashem gave him food, like almost like the mun. And then he ran, think about this, towards, I once actually had made a map of this. He went from Beersheba to Eilat, and from Eilat to Har Sinai. So Eliyahu Hanavi goes to run to Har Sinai, which is called here in the Navi Chorev. Uhalach b'midbar. Vayar vayokam vayilach al nafshay vayavay Beersheba asher liYehuda vayanach as narisham. He went to Beersheba. He left his assistant there. Uhalach b'midbar derech yoim. Then he traveled in the midbar. So we all know our geography. He traveled in the midbar for another day. Vayavay vayeshev tachas rosem echad, and he sat under some type of a tree. I'm not sure what a rotem is, a brush tree. Vayishal es nafshay lamus, he asked to die. Vayomer Rav ata Hashem kach nafshi, take me now. Loi toiv anoichi me'avoisai. Vayishka vayishan tachas roisem echad, he went to sleep. V'hinei ze malach noigea boy vayomer like lumechol. Where did he eat this whole journey? How did he eat? So the malach woke him up and said, here you'll find food. Vayabet v'hinei merashoisav ugas ritzafim v'tzapachas moyim. It's like our Kiddush on Shabbos. He finds a whole Suda there next to him. Vayocha, Vayesh, Vayosha, Vayishkav. Again, he ate. And he traveled for 40 days on the food that Hashem gave him in the Tachas HaRoshim. Ad, where did he go for 40 days? Ad Har Ha'elikim Chorev. He went to Har Sinai. He knew where Har Sinai was. He went right to Har Sinai. Vayavai Sham El Hama'ara Vayolen Sham. He went into the cave of Har Sinai. This Chazal is the same cave that Moshe Rabbeinu was told to go, B'nikra Satsur, the cleft of the rock. Eliyahu now is in the cave of Har Sinai, which Matan Torah was a long time ago. And we don't know a particular Kedusha to Har Sinai, by the way. When there was Matan Torah, there was Matan Torah. But at Har Sinai, in the cave, Eliyahu, what are you doing here? Why are you here? I'm a kanoi against the Jews because they broke your mizbachos. They've killed your prophets. I'm one man alone, and everybody wants to kill me. Hashem says, get out of the cave, stand on Har Sinai, stand lifnei Hashem. V'hinei Hashem oiver, and Hashem passes. V'ruach gedola v'chazak, and there was suddenly a big, huge wind that came over Har Sinai. It's important for us to picture this. A big ruach gedola v'chazak, mefarek harim u'meshaber slayim. It was a type of wind like a tornado that was mefarek harim, that could break apart a mountain and break through stones, lifnei Hashem. And then the Nevuah said, he's standing there in this windstorm, Loi beruach Hashem. This is not Hashem. You just had this very, very windy experience. You're holding on for your life. Wow, Har Sinai. Loi beruach Hashem. Ba'acher haruach rash. The ruach passes and there's noise. Remember Har Sinai. Koilos, ubrakim. There was noise, there was thunder, there was lightning on the mountain. Again, Eliyahu Hanavi, Acher haruach rash. And the Nevuah says, Loi barash Hashem. That's not Hashem. That's a tumult. That's a lot of noise. So first he experiences this ruach. Maybe that's God. I want to see God. I want to have the spiritual experience. Loi baruch Hashem. Loi barash Hashem. Acher harash eish. Remember Har Sinai. Har boyer kulai. After the ruach, after the rash, thunder, comes eish. Lo be'eish Hashem. Ba'acher ha'eish, and then after the fire, kol demama daka. Kol demama daka. Quiet. It's a kol, but it's demama, it's quiet, silent, even dak. What we're going to learn here is just so important, so fundamental. The spiritual experience of Eliyahu Hanavi, hence what we have to learn from it. That looking for an experience of HaKadosh Baruch Hu goes to Har Sinai. He goes to the place, to the Ma'ara. And there in the place, imagine yourself in this situation, meditating, davening, whatever he's doing, learning Tosfos with the Maram Shif, whatever he was doing. He's there in the place, and unbelievable ruach. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, comes this unbelievable ruach. Wow, I'm experiencing God. Not like ruach. In the Avodas Hashem, there are these madrigas that we have to go through. We have to go through a situation of ruach, rash, eish, until we get to the place of kol demama daka. So I said at the beginning, it seems like Reb Tzadok is Soiser al Atzma. If everything's kavana, the kavana of everything is to get to the leyv, So let's just skip the eights and let me get to the leyv. No, the kavan of everything, in other words, is to get to the place of kol demamadaka. Do you know I hope everybody's had the schus to be in the presence of a true tzaddik. If you're in the presence of a true tzaddik, and you go to that tzaddik, maybe to ask an eitzah for your problems, or to ask for a bracha for your tzaras, when you get into the presence of a real tzaddik, you have no tzaras. You have no problems. And you kick yourself afterwards saying, why didn't I say what I was supposed to say? At kedei kach, that by the Hasidim, they write it down in advance before they come in and give a kiddush. But the shot in there's never a situation where, in my humble experience, where you stand before a true tzaddik and there's a tumult. There's a lot of tumults, a lot of batei midrashos, there's a lot of shuls, there's tumult, a lot of balagan. And that's the way it's supposed to be. But there's madregas here, there's chambers. Like Baruch Hashem, like Barash Hashem. Let's go inside a little bit more. Eish, fire, lo be'eish Hashem. When you get to the inner chambers, the innermost chambers, kol demamadaka, everything is quiet. Let me tell you something. I read this a long time ago. The lashon is beautiful in the Chalban, in Parshas Truma. The Chalban and Parshas Truma. Just want to read you a couple of sentences, and I was going to just say it without reading it, but his words are so much better than I can say it. But he talks about the different chambers of the Beis Hamikdash. In the chambers of the Beis Hamikdash, right? Everyone has a picture. You had obviously the outside, the Makom HaMikdash. You went into the Azara or the Heichal. In the Azara, you had the Mizbeach HaNechoshes, big Mizbeach. You went into an inner chamber Kodesh. You had the Mizbeach Hazov. You went into the innermost chamber, or I should say, you don't go into the innermost chamber, Kodesh HaKodshim, and there's an Aron Kodesh. It's the same Aron Kodesh. It was built in the Midbar. It's the Aron. So you have different chambers, different levels of Kedusha to enter, says, writes the Chalban, Parshas Truma. Hikara avodas hakarbanos haisu bachutz. The action was outside. Ba'azara, ba'akravas hakarbanos. K'may kain hakarbanos. The karbanos was habehemos. The karbanos rather habehemos mevatos l'satzadim abahamiyim shel ha'olam. The fact that there, as you walked into the Azara, you saw behemoths walking around. You go into a farm, you're walking into the Beis Hamikdash. Behemoths, blood. Avodas Hazar noada lahaloisas harivodim, to start the chain reaction. Hanemuchim shel oilam, which start all the way on the bottom. Limroim hakodesh. Rash Godol. There was a big tumult. Rosh HaZorah. You went into the Beis Hamikdash, and if somebody came from the outside to the inside and he saw the Beis Hamikdash, he says, this is Yiddishkeit. Eish, Maracha, Shir Salavim, nice. Levim are singing Shchita, Avodas Koyanim. But you think about it, there was blood, there was spritzing, and people with blood on their aprons. It was a big butcher shop, the Azara. Rash. Think about Eliyahu and Hanavi. Pnimi v'nelam yoiser, but you go deeper inside the Beis Hamikdash. Ha-heichel. The heichel. Sham kvar avodos nelamais pnimius yoiser. Much more pnimi. Much more dakistic. Zakos. Atzilus yoiser. Pure. Atzili. Avodos ma'atos yoiser. Not a lot of action in the heichel. Ba'bayker, uba'erev, uba'lachash. Morning, and evening, and quietly. There in that inner chamber, the heichel, hatovas haneros, you had a menorah. or zach v'tor, very pure light. Haktoras hakatoras, and you brought the katoras, no animals there. Reach nichoyach la'Hashem. Hareach v'ari'iyah shnei hakoyches elyonim shabadam, because it's reach and seeing, which are higher, he writes, than the shchita and the blood. When he went inside, was avoda inside the heichal, avoda shel shuva v'nachas tara v'zakus loy dam loy behemus loy eitzim chayim tarim sreifasam. There was no raw wood, there was no animals in there, and there was no blood in there. Elot someach. What was it, by the way? This is interesting. What was taking place in the heichal? Someach zayis v'samamone hakteris. There was little plants where they took olives and also samamonim for the keteris. This heichal. It was a beautiful garden. It was beautiful. Imagine, and it smelled beautiful, and it looked beautiful. Mizbeach hazov. The mizbeach was made out of gold. Spiritual place. Loy dam, loy behemus, loy eitzim. Sameach zayis and sana v'gacholim loy chashais. There the coals were whispering. So poetic. Whispering coals, not a fire. Hanilkachais, those coals were taken, me'al hamizbeach hachitz, and were brought in from the outside mizbeach. There was a shulchan in this heichal. What was on the shulchan? Shulchan. Kiman lo navda avodah. Who did anything with the shulchan? He didn't even touch it. Right? Arichas lechem apnimi olo mishabbos l'shabbos. You put the bread there from Shabbos to Shabbos. It was something that your eyes feasted on. V'sulai. Zeh makom pnimi, kelim pnimiyim, v'avodas pnimiyos yoser. I skip a little bit. La'ela u'la'ela yoser. Now imagine yourself now walking, and you can, by the way, imagine yourself doing this every time you daven. You imagine yourself walking into the Beis HaMikdash. You're starting off with the shchita and the blood and the cows and everything that's gashmius, going there in raw wood, and you're spinning the wood. What do you call it? When you take the bark off the wood. It's rough. I don't know. We did it in camp. It's a balagan. You go into the Azara quiet. Smells good, it looks beautiful, no blood. What happens to go further? La'ela u'la'ela yoser makom hapnimi va'anelam, the most hidden place in the world. Chavoi b'mamake hapnimius, hidden inside the Beis HaMikdash, makom kodesh hakodesh. That's the place of kodesh hakodesh. Makom niskav lamala mikol gidrei olamis. That's on a higher level than everything else in this world. Not even part of this world. Nobody touched it, nobody saw it, nobody went in. Me'ilah. There was no avodah like nobody walked in there. Rak, b'yoim echad b'shana, was only once a year. B'yoim boy oila hadam mibchinas adam, on which day of the year? Yom Kippur. So it was only on Yom Kippur, on the Holy of Holies, comes the man who's the Holy of Holies after all the Tahara. On Yom Kippur, a person is not an Adam anymore. A person goes to the Madrega of Malach. And the Kohen and the Kohen Gadol, so much more so. This happens once a year. So you're coming from the outside in more to the place you can't even go, except for once a year, the Kohen Gadol. Ubashem Kol Yisrael, and there he represents all the people. To find the hidden unity. Like unity is hard to find. And I believe, I don't want to be discouraging, but everyone's working for unity. But unity is hard to find in this world of disparity. Where you're going to find it is in the higher worlds, where the neshamas are all one. And where you're going to find the unity of Klal Yisrael is on the lave of the Kohen Gadol as he goes into the Kodesh HaKodshim, because everything there is a echad. And there's a unity. And from there, it can build out. But you see, like, it's the same hakira that we're asking this whole time. You start from the outside in, or you go from the inside out. One last sentence from the Chalban. Im kain sholosh dargos. So we find 3 madregas. Avodas chutz ba'azara. Bahed noy chaysa adam gevaya v'avodasem meruba v'ro eshes. The Rash. Loy barash Hashem, says the Tanakh. Avodas pnim behechel. You can walk further in. Bahed noy chaysa adam mitzum semes yoser ba'avodas mu'etas. Less gashmias, more ruchnias. V'toykef ha'or ha'elyon misrabe ula malkum kodesh hakodshim, malkum nelam v'nister, the hidden place. L'loy maga adam v'noy choysay, elahis galus elokis elyoina upnimis. It's one of the things that's so fascinating is that the biggest gilui is only in the place which is most beseiser. Gilui, Yoshe beseiser elyon. Gilui means the revelation of Hashem. The only place where Hashem's going to be revealed is in the most hidden place in the world.
It's similar to give a bracha, a space that someone in ayin, bracha, in bracha, shalom.
Same thing. But you look at even Har Sinai had the don't touch the mountain. There's the Canaan, above them Aaron Avona, above that Moshe Rabbeinu. So the more hidden you are, the more of a hidden place it is, the more revealed. Why? Because hidden means the absence of gashmias. Now, let me just, because it's time to end, let me just do with you 2 things. Number one, I must read you this Malbim here in Sefer Malachim. And the Malbim says, what was this? And this is really the knisa into this tremendous limud. What is this that was going on with Eliyahu? And he says, the Malbim says, you'll find the same thing in Yecheskel's Nevuah, Yecheskel Parak Aleph, and he compares the 2. So he says, hey, these 3 things, what are the 3 things? Ruach, Rash, Eish. Haim shloisha klipos hasoivavos ha'egois v'hapri. These are the 3 klipos. As a klipa, is that a good thing or a bad thing? A klipa. Yeah. Bad if you want to eat it. Good if you want the orange to last, right? So you have the klipa. There are 3 madregas of klipa. There's the orange part on the outside. There's the white part on the inside, and then there's the part which is very tight to the skin, to the skin of the orange itself, or a grape or nut or whatever you want. So sholosh klipos hasoivavos ha'egois v'hapri v'chein ra Eliyahu ruach v'rash v'eish rosh Hashem lo nimsa bam. But he saw. This is not the orange yet. This is appealing. This is not the orange yet. Because these are really veneers. These are really separations, which are between me and the Kodesh. Umehem teitze hara. You need those things, but that's where all evil comes from.
It's 10 o'clock.
Thank you. But after the Aish, Ra Kol Demama Daka. Then he saw the very Kol Demama Daka. He heard Shehu Hanoiga. By the way, that's not Hashem either. It's called in Kabbalah. It's called the Klipas Noiga. You have Sholosh Klipos Hatmeyos, which we need to break through, and then you get to the Klipas Noiga, the inner Klipa, which is, you can't tell quite, is it the orange or is it a klipa? You can eat it, but it's not a pure orange. So when we daven, we say in V'la malshinim al tisikva v'chol minim chol azeh n'kerega zayvedu v'chol eve amcha meir yikaresu v'azedim sa'aker u'seshaber 1, 2, usemager. Visachnia, and then you should be machnia, because that can become bottled. So the saker, shaber, usmager is the shalosh klipas hatameis. Visachnia is the klipas noiga. That's what we're davening when we're saying V'lam al Shinim. Let's get through it. Says the Malbim, excuse me for going over for a minute. Yechezkel saw that as chashmal, nothing to do with the chashmal that we have here, but some type of a spiritual thing. And then he says here at the end, Ulam kafi hanigla, as it seems, he saw Hera like B'machana ruach v'rash v'eish ein Hashem barak b'kol demama. Umimenu yomadu shlocha. The pasuk, the shot in the pasuk, says the Malbim, that everybody who's a shliach Hashem, unaviyav or a navi of Hashem should learn from here. Bal yisaru sar, bal yirashu rash, bal yaviru eish. Don't get so excited. In other words, like people get too excited about, Shabbos, So the Malbim is saying, don't throw stones. Bal yirashu rash, bal yaviru eish. Says Eliyahu did on his way to Har Sinai. He stopped the Shemayim, he killed the Nevi'ei Abal. Ki Hashem yishlach es Nevi'av she'yavoyu aleim b'kol demama, says the Malbim. A Navi is supposed to speak quietly, kol demama daka. V'yimshechu es ha'am, he's supposed to be makar of the people, ba'avoisais ha'ava, with bonds of love, ubidvarim rakim, and with soft words. Malbim's limud. I just can't get away from such an important and pashut limud. Just take it easy. Take it easy. On the other hand, Rav Tzadok, the one sentence preview for next week in Mir Hashem, but you can't start off in the Kodesh HaKodeshim. You can't just jump in from the air into the Kodesh HaKodeshim and say, I'm going to skip the Mizbeach HaNechoshes, and I'm going to skip the Shechita, and I'm going to skip the Dam, and I'm going to skip the Shulchan and the Menorah. Give me the real thing. Where's the beef? I just want to get into the Kodesh HaKodeshim. Doesn't work that way. Also, Eliyahu Navi, it didn't work that way. Before he was able to conceive of the Kol Demama Daka, there had to be Ruach, there had to be Rash, there had to be Eish. It's per force, a system, it's a derech. So how's this Misyashe with Rav Tzadok, Lishitase, and Sifam Aleph? You start with the Rash, and you end up with the Kol Demama Daka. You start with the Chipazain, and you end up with the Pesach HaDeres. You start off with the undeserved chitzonius of Lashinos Levusham, Lashinos as Lashinam, Lashinos Shmam, and you work into Lashinos Nishmaisayim. That's the Sirius Omer, yes, to get you to Har Sinai. And even then, there was an Egel Hazav. So yes, the goal of the 613 mitzvahs is to get to the leyv, but that doesn't mean that you could just jump to the leyv. And this is the beauty of Torah, the beauty of Judaism. The beauty of Judaism is we have a derech, and it's not right away. It feels superficial on the outside, it feels technical, but it's a way in, and we go further in and further in and further in. Ruach, Rash, Eish. Okay, to be continued. Thank you very much.